Week 2 extension. The first question says the graph below represents which inequality or which two inequalities. Okay, so first things first, this is an inequality because I see some type of shading. All right, so that means that my solution is in some certain area. Okay, and I see a dotted and solid line. All right, the minute I see that dotted line, I should think about either greater than or less than with no line underneath. The solid line would be greater than or equal to and less than or equal to, which would be, as I said, a solid line. Okay, so now we're going to try to evaluate what those equations are. Okay, so if you realize these lines don't look like a typical line. This is a straight line going downwards, a vertical line, and this is a straight line going across. That's a horizontal line. Whenever we have a vertical line, it's only going to be talking about what x is. All right. Whenever we have a horizontal line, we're only talking about what y is. Okay. In this case, we saw that x was crossing or intersecting the x-axis at 3. Okay. Here, this y intersected the y-axis at -3. Okay. Now I need to figure out the operator. Okay. So I need to look at where it's shaded. This, if we look at this dotted line, it seems like all the things that were shaded were more to the left. All right. So all the numbers that are to the left of this +3 would be 2, 1, 0, and negative numbers. So if we're looking at those as the solution and those are smaller than 3, we would use a less than sign. Okay. So again, this would be technically like below the line. All right. This would be technically above the line. Okay, now we're going to do the same thing for the y. So we're going to look at where it's shaded. Okay, so this looks like, so again, it's a solid line, so we will have a line underneath. And this looks like you're shaded not below it, but above it. Okay, so if I'm shaded above this line, it's going to be a greater than sign. Okay, and those would be my two inequalities. Okay, so the first one, we have x is less than 3. So this one has less than 3, but it has less than or equal to -3. We needed a greater than. So this one's wrong. This has less than 3, yup. But this also has less than or equal to -3. So this is looks like the exact same thing as here. So this is wrong also. This is x is greater than 3. We needed less than 3. This says x is less than 3 and greater than or equal to -3. So that's my result. All right. So what about the next one? Well, the next one looks like a typical line. So every time we think about a typical line, we need to think about y equal mx plus b. Good job. All right. So in this case, we're going to write the equation. So we're going to have y equal some slope x and some y-intercept. All right. The easiest thing to find is your y-intercept. Okay. So my y-intercept is where I cross my y-axis. So the y-intercept is at +2, okay? So I put a +2 as my y-intercept. Now I need to identify my slope. So to find your slope, you're going to go from a solid point to a solid point. And you're going to always go from left to right. So this is a solid point. If I follow my line, the other solid point is right down here. So I need to go from here to here. So would I need to go up or down? I would need to go down 1, 2, 3, 4 times. Because I went down 4, that's going to be what type of 4? A -4. All right. Now I would need to go to the right to get to this point. So I need to go to the right 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Because you went to the right, it's a +5. All right. Because if you go to the right, it's positive. Okay. Can I simplify this anymore? No. All right. So my slope will be -4 over 5. Okay, so that's what my slope would be. Okay, however, guys, this doesn't look like any of the answers that we have right here. This doesn't look like any of these, but we can make it become one of those. All right, so here we see a fraction. So let's get rid of that fraction. To get rid of a fraction is dividing. So to get rid of a divide, you would multiply. So I'm going to multiply everything by the denominator by 5. So multiply this by 5, this by 5, that by 5. 5 times y is 5y. When I multiply by the same thing that I'm dividing by, it cancels it out. So I'm left with negative 4x, all right? And then 5 times 2 is 10, okay? So now it kind of looks like that. However, all of these answers have the x and y on the same side. So let's move the x to this side. To move the x to this side, I would add 4x to both sides of my equation, okay? So my answer is going to look like 4x, and instead of just writing 5y, it's a positive number, so plus 5y. This got canceled, equal positive 10. All right? So in this case, guys, we don't have an equal sign. We have less than or greater than or equal to signs. So we need to look at where it's shaded. So this looks like it's shaded above the line. If I'm shaded above the line, it's going to be greater than that line. And because it's a solid line, we will have the or equal to. Okay? And that looks like this one right here. Okay? So 4x plus 5y greater than or equal to 10. Alright, that's a difficult question, so make sure you pay close attention. So the next one, it says which equation represents the line. Alright, so in this case, all the answers are in the form y equal mx plus b. So that will make our job a little easier. So we're going to write it as y equal some slope x, some y-intercept. Alright, but in this case, the y-intercept seems to be a fraction. And that's very hard for you to identify. So what we're going to do is that we're going to try to find the slope first, because the y-intercept looks like it's hard to find. So to find your slope, you're going to go from a solid point to a solid point. So when I look here, my first solid point seems to be right here, okay? I know it's hard to see, all right, but we're going to just try our best. Our next solid point seems to be right here, okay? So if we're going to go from left to right, I would first need to go either up or down, okay? So would I need to go up or would I need to go down? I would need to go up. So I would need to go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. Because you went up 5 times, that's a positive 5. Now I need to go to the right 1, 2, 3 times. Okay? So that's going to be a positive 3. Can I simplify that anymore? No. Okay? So because of that, I'll just go ahead and put my slope as 5 over 3. Okay? Now we would try to find the y-intercept, but that's going to be very hard for us to try to identify because the y-intercept is a fraction, okay? So what we're going to do is that we're going to just do process of elimination, okay? So this has 3 over 5x. That would be wrong because we need 5 over 3. This has a 3 over 5x. That would be wrong. We need 5 over 3. These two have a 3 over 5x. However, this says that the y-intercept is what type of number? A negative number. Here, we didn't cross the y-axis down here. We crossed it at the positive. All right, so we crossed it somewhere up here, not somewhere down here. So because of that, we would select this as the answer because the y-intercept has to be a positive number. All right, because it's crossing the y-axis at the positive side. All right, and that would be it. So let's try the next one. All right. So this one is actually given. It says which equation represents the line, but the answers aren't given in slope-intercept. So again, they're not given in slope-intercept. They're given in point-slope. All right. So the answers for this one are given in point-slope form. Okay. So with point-slope, guys, this is what the general form looks like. Y minus y1 equal m parentheses x minus x1. All right, where this represents the y coordinate or the point for the y. This represents the point for what do you think? The x. And as you should remember, m is always representing slope. Okay? So in this case, guys, we're going to look at the answers and try to evaluate what could represent this line. All right? So here, this is saying that the y point, so we have to remember to do the opposite of these numbers. All right? So that's something you have to remember to do the opposite of these numbers. So in this case, my y point would actually be for this one I'm just write it right here. So for A, that point would have been -3 for the x and +1 for the y. That's what the point would be, okay? And then the slope, okay, would be +2. So that's what the slope would be, okay? For this one right here, the point would be -3 for the x and -1 for the y. Because again, you always have to do the opposite of these two numbers, okay? And the slope was 2. For this one down here, we had a -1 for the x and a +3 for the y with a slope of 2. And for this last one, D, right here, we had to do the opposite of here. So we had a -1 for the x and a -3 for the y. And the slope was 2. Okay? So let's try to figure out which one has a point on that, because all the slopes are the same. So the point is where we need to find a difference. Okay? So when I look at this one, guys, all right, I can try to find the point -3, 1. And it needs to be on this line. So -3, 1 seems to be right here. Is -3, 1 on that line? So this is -3, 1. Is that on that line? No. So this is wrong. Okay? So what about B? What about this one? The point was -3, -1. So -3, -1. That looks like it's on that line. Because it is on that line, this would be our answer. The others would be wrong because -1, +3 would be right here. -1, +3, all right, would be right here. Oh, seems like both of those were on that line. Okay, so -1, +3 is actually also on that line. Okay, so this one could also be our answer, all right? But this one, -1, -3 would never be our answer. So -1, -3, that's right here. That would not be on my answer, one of my answers, all right? Because it's not on my line, all right? So these would technically be your two answers, okay? So the final question, all right? So the question says, Sanjay buys X boxes of hot wings and Y bottles of soda for a party. The number of boxes of hot wings and bottles of soda can buy $40 or can buy with $40 can be represented with the inequality. We need to identify which graph represents that inequality. Okay? So to do that, guys, we're gonna go ahead, all right, and try to rewrite this equation in the form y equal mx plus b, all right? So that way we can evaluate what that equation is, okay? So to do that, I'm going to move the x to the other side, and I'm going to try to move this y over there too, okay? So to move this x to the other side, I would subtract 6x on both sides of the equations, okay? This will get canceled, and now I would have, we can't subtract 6x from +40, so I would have -6x and a +40 is greater than or equal to 2y. All right? So now I would get rid of that 2 that's right there. So that 2 is being multiplied. To get rid of it, I would divide by it, and I need to divide each of these by it also. Okay? So now we end up having y is going to be less than or equal to 40 divided by 2 is 20, all right, or +20, and -6 divided by 2 is -3, and I rewrite the x, okay? So again, in this case, this is the y-intercept, okay, and this is your slope, okay? So you can rewrite it similar to what I'm going to do right here. So you could rewrite the same equation like this, where you have y is, make sure that where it's pointing is pointing on the y, and then -3x plus 20. That way it looks more like the y equal mx plus b. So let's evaluate which one looks like that. So the y-intercept is at 20, but all of these seem to have a y-intercept at 20, okay? We need to have a slope of -3, but that's hard to find. So let's look at the solid line. So again, there's a line underneath, so it's a solid line. So this has a dotted, this has a dotted. So this would be wrong. This would be wrong because we need solid lines. Okay? Here, this is saying that y is less than or equal to. If I'm less than or equal to, I'm going to be below it. Alright? Here, it looks like it's above the line. So that's wrong. We need to be below the line. So that would be the result. Okay? So let's do the final question, guys. The final question. Alright? So it says, which graph represents the function right here? So again, I'm going to have to get it in the form y equal mx plus b. And this one, I have to actually know the points. Okay? So we have 7x plus 4y equal 14. To get it, I'm going to try to subtract 7x, subtract 7x. This gets canceled. Now I'm going to bring down my 4y. And then you can't subtract 7x from 14. So I write as 7x plus 14. Then I'm going to now divide by 4, divide by 4, divide by 4. So now we have y equal, you can't divide this by 4, you get a fraction, negative 7 over 4x, all right? And then here, we can't divide it, but we can simplify it by 2. This would be 7 positive 7 over 2, okay? So in this case, guys, this is hard to evaluate. So what we're going to do, guys, is evaluate the slope. All right? All right, we're going to evaluate the slope. All right? So to find that slope, guys, firstly, we can evaluate that it needs to have a negative slope. All right? Because again, this is going down 7 times, right 4 times. All right? The only ones that have a negative slope are graph 1 and graph 2. These have a positive slope because this line is going up, this line is going up. These are going down, down, so this is a negative slope, these are positive slopes. So this one's off, okay? This one is also off. So the answer is in between these two. So I would say go down 7 times, right 2 times. You can't see this very well, but this coordinate is 0, 3.5. And then this coordinate is 2, 0. Alright? These are changing by 0.5. If I change by 0.5 7 times, that's the same as that 3.5. So in reality, this is the solution. Alright? If you want further explanation, ask your in-class teacher for further explanation.